Okay, so you guys probably know this. If you're watching this video, you know that I'm writing a series, and if you're brand new to my channel, then you're probably coming here for the title of this video, which is writing a series and what I'm learning so far. And so if you're anything like me, you probably found that there's not that much information out there, which is weird because series are pretty common. Are there any tips and tricks that can make it easier? Are there any ways that can make the books more cohesive and make them all make sense? And how do you plan it all out? And I just want to talk about all these things because I've been learning a lot. Because first of all, when I wrote this series right here, Pearl's number was book 2, and I was sort of winging it. And I remember I was looking up information on series and there was like nothing out there. I just could not find anything useful to me, and I was like, where is all the advice? There's videos on everything else, there's tons of information on, you know, dialogue and first drafts and whatnot, but where is the information on writing a series well? I'm like, where is it? So I had to do so much research, and especially as I began writing my new series, which is a fantasy series of currently 4 books, potentially 5, but hopefully 4. And I was just like, where is this information? I need it. Let me tell you a little bit about my fantasy series. I am writing a series of retellings. So they are 4 books, like I mentioned. The first one is an Aladdin retelling. Then there's a Little Mermaid retelling. Both of those are written already. Then there is I almost said then there are 2 more retellings that I have not revealed yet. I totally just said it, but I'm going to delete it out so you don't know. I did reveal the 3rd one over on my Patreon page, but I am not telling everyone that just yet. And when we reach, I think it's 25 patrons on my Patreon page, then I will reveal the 4th one as well, which is a villain. Back to my point. So I have those 4 books, and I have been struggling to figure out, well, back in the beginning in like June or July, I think it was when I started, I was like, I have to plan this better. Like this was fun, this worked out, but certain things were not so great. I don't know if you've seen some of my other videos where I talked about this. I did a video with Jessie, which I will link below, Jessie Elliott, where we talked about series, and we talked about how when you publish the one, it's set in stone, so book 2 had better line up with it or else, you know what I mean? So like, there were certain things that I wish that I could have like rewritten in book 1 that would have made book 2 even more interesting and intriguing, and it was still good, but it was more work. It was a lot more work. So without further ado, let's just get into it. I have today 4 tips for you for things that will help. That was very Minnesotan, fur. I have 4 tips for you that will help you if you're writing a series, and I really hope that these will kind of like intrigue you and give you some ideas for your story, because I know a lot of people are writing a series as well, and there's not that much info out there. And then if you guys like this video, if you give it a thumbs up and let me know that you like this kind of content, I will try to continue doing more videos on how to write a series as I go along and I learn more and I pick up more. So every point of view character needs a beat sheet or an arc. If you've read Save the Cat Writes a Novel, which by the way, if you don't already know, is like my favorite book ever for writing. I think I have it right there. Hold on. Right here. This book. Right here. You guys. This book, it's very beat up. I don't know if you can tell, it's very dog-eared. When I say they need a beat sheet, that is basically, how do I sum that up? That is basically the, you know, start to finish of a character's story. Like I think she calls it a transformation kind of machine. So it's like their transformation. They need a beginning, a middle, and end. They need to be going somewhere. So every single main character point of view in your story needs to have their own arc. So okay, let me like try to rephrase that, because like the technical terms can kind of be like, whew, what are we talking about? Your point of view characters, like for instance, I have 2 main point of view characters, and they each they take turns in book 1. And so each of those 2 characters then need their own arc, their own full story. Like if you have side characters, it's good to flesh them out, but their needs and wants and blah, blah, blah is not going to matter to the reader. Like, they might influence a little bit, and it's good to know a little bit about them, but you don't need their full arc. Like, when you have an MC, if you only have one main character, then obviously you just focus on that one main character. But if you had like a group of 4 or 5, which is a lot, you know, like Six of Crows I think has 6, right? Obviously. So all 6 of those characters, those point of view characters or main characters, whatever you want to call them, all 6 of them had an arc, I think. It's been a while. It's been a long time since I read that book, but like, you have to figure out like where they're starting, like kind of where they're broken, what their needs are, what's wrong, and then what they're going to learn in the story, which is their arc, and how they're going to be transformed and changed in the end, and what they've learned. Basically, yeah, what they've learned. So like, this talks so much about it, you guys. If you haven't gotten this book, I highly recommend it, but I'm just gonna leave it at that every main character needs their own arc. To bring it to my personal example, in book 1 of the Princesses and Castles series, as I like to call it as a joke, there's 2 MCs, 2 main characters. There's the Jasmine character, which obviously she has a different name, and then there's the Aladdin character. And so it's from the Jasmine character's perspective, so she's the main MC. Like, there's always one who's the main, like, lead MC, but then the other guy, the Aladdin character, I almost said his name, but not yet, he also is a point of view character. He has his own chapters. We like get into his head. So while the Jasmine character had an arc, and she had like a full story going on, the Aladdin character was like flat. He didn't really have like, I was halfway through the story and halfway through drafting it before I kind of figured out he needs his own like drive, his own needs, his own wants, his own hurts. He needs his own like lesson to learn. He needs his own thing, and it should relate to hers, because they need to come together, and it can be really fun if they don't want to relate to each other, but they need each other, but that's a whole nother thing. So anyway, I had to give him his own arc, and I'm gonna stop rambling because this is getting really long already. Each book needs an arc or beat sheet of its own, but so does the series as a whole. So that one is so tricky, and that one I know for a fact needs to be done, but I'm still working on it. Again, I'm using the beat sheet or the arc, but you've got your transformation or your lesson, whatever you want to call the story. It has a beginning, middle, and end. That's a good way to put it, a beginning, middle, and end. So each book needs to have a beginning, middle, and end. But then the trick is that the series as a whole also needs a beginning, middle, and an end. Have you ever read a trilogy and the middle book feels like filler? That can be really tricky, because like with a series of 4, like with a trilogy, sure, you've got 3 books. So book 1 is the beginning, book 2 is the middle, and book 3 is the end, right? But when you have 4, it's a little more tricky. So yeah, I think the middle 2 are both kind of the middle, but then of course they need to have their own story, and it needs to be a full story. So it's kind of cool to, as you're plotting out your series, to create like an overarching story that's bigger than they know in book 1, and it's bigger than they know in book 2, and it starts to be revealed in, you know, whatever book 2 or 3 or 4. Like if you had a really long series, it could take a while to really reveal the full arc. Now, just a side note, this is not necessarily true for a companion series. The difference between like a typical series and a companion series is that a companion series is its own full story, like a standalone type story, but it's set in the same world. So they don't necessarily have to be read in order, from what I understand. I've never written one, so don't quote me on that, but I think it's worth looking into. If you're just starting to consider a series, look into a companion series, because the different stories could all be told at any time. You know what I mean? Like you have your world set up, and then you can have different stories of even different people in that world, and it's all connected. They're like companion stories, versus like the Hunger Games, which is very much on a timeline, and it's very much in order. So Like you need to read book 1 before 2, before 3 to really get the full scope of the story. So it's worth looking into to know what you want to write for that. Drafting the whole series before publication, because things change. I talked about this when I talked about that series. Oh my gosh. If you know where you're going, you know your final end destination as a plotter, you usually kind of know where you're going, even maybe as a pantser, but things change. I don't know about you guys, but every single story that I've written has had changes that I did not see coming. And I don't think this is just me, but I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. If you have written a story exactly the way that you intended, nothing changed at all, good for you. I really wish that I could do that. But at least for the majority of us writers, things change. So my new plan after I did that series and kind of learned the hard way what I didn't see coming, my new plan for this series of the 4 books is to draft all of them. Fully draft, not edit and all that, but definitely draft all 4 books so that I know the ending, because it's sort of like the same problem you would have if you were writing, just one book, but you never wrote the ending of the book or even the middle. If you just continue to edit and edit and edit the first few chapters, like you can edit those chapters as much as you want, but once you actually write the ending of your story, you might find that those chapters are not right for the book at all. Like that happened to me. I had a prologue that I just threw out. So knowing this, I realized very quickly, like I am trying to start editing book 1, and that's even a problem. Even just editing it without knowing the ending of the series feels like editing the first few chapters of a book without knowing the end of the book. It just doesn't feel right to me. What I'm trying to say here is that drafting the whole series, if possible. I don't know if this is anyone else's strategy. Let me know if you've ever done this before and if it works for you, or if you have written series before and you just prefer to write one book at a time and like finish that book, publish that book, whatever. But for me, as nice as that would be to just do one at a time and put them out because I'd be able to publish sooner and focus on one book at a time, obviously, as much as I would like to do that, my realization is that I need to know the ending. And I think it's really beneficial. I'm not going to tell you what to do at all, but I'm going to tell you from my personal experience, I think it's really beneficial to draft your full series. And I remember reading about Marissa Meyer, who wrote these books right here, the Lunar Chronicles series. She drafted, I think 3 or 4 of them during NaNoWriMo. So what she did is she did a fast drafting type thing. Look up fast drafting if you don't know what that is. But basically, she did all of them in a row as well. And so I know that it's a thing. I know that other writers out there do this. But I can already tell from as I'm editing this book, I'm like, I don't know what my edit should be until I know what the ending is, what like book 3 and 4 are about, what happens in them. Like I have it plotted out, guys. I do. I have it plotted out. But it's very open to interpretation, if you know what I mean. Like things could happen that influence book 1 a lot, and not even just in dramatic ways, but in ways where I could foreshadow better. For example, when I foreshadow, I love to draft and get to the end, know what the whole book is, and then once I know what the ending is, I start sprinkling in. I go backwards and I work my way backwards, but that's a whole nother video too. If you want a foreshadowing video, let me know in the comments below. But foreshadowing is really fun, and I think to really utilize foreshadowing to the absolute fullest that you possibly can, it helps to have your whole series figured out before and like drafted before you publish. I'm going to also say before editing, and that's from experience, because I'm realizing that if I just gone through and continued to draft, I would know what the whole series is already, and my editing would probably be a lot smoother already. All right, I better finish before this light just totally ruins everything. So my last point is, for me at least, I need a story binder, and the sooner you start taking notes on your series, the better. So let me show you guys. Let me show you guys my cute little story binder. It's stripes and polka dots. How cute is this? I just think it's so cute. I just love this so much. Oops, there's my notebook falling out. So I have some sketches that I've made. I'm gonna pull it out so you can't see the name on it. And then I have just my cover But in this series binder, I also have a character list. I still gotta put tabs in there, but you get the idea. They got pictures. I also have notes on my world and the things that I've set up for the magic system, the different cultures, the different names of places. That is very important. I have them going a lot of different places. I have a glossary of different book terms, if I want to eventually maybe include a glossary. Is that even the word, guys? I don't know what the word is that I want. But anyway, book terms in the back and how to say them. And then I have the beat sheet for each of the 4 books. So the whole arc and the beat sheet for them. So that is my series binder. And I am just including this in my notes of things that I'd recommend because it's a lot. For this series, I remember thinking, oh, 2 books, no big deal. I'll be able to figure that out. But you end up having to refer back to it. Even then, I wouldn't say a lot, but kind of a lot. And so now I come to 4 books and fast drafting, and then as I'm editing, what's changed? What are the rules? I want to, especially with fantasy, but I think this is true with all books, just to have some place, whether it's an actual binder, it doesn't have to be a story binder, it could also just be previously I had notebooks, so this is one of my notebooks for book 2. This is book 2. It helps to be organized, let's just put it that way. I think step 4 or tip number 4 should have been stay organized. If you have any questions about series, let me know below, especially if you have specific questions and I can know if I need to make another video on it, if there's other tips that I didn't even think of, because I've been learning a lot. And then definitely let me know if you want a point of view video, or how to pick how many points of view, or how to pick past tense or present tense, or how to pick, third person or first person, or foreshadowing. All of those topics really interest me right now because that's what I'm working on right now. And then if you do want more one-on-one coaching, or just to talk to me on a frequent basis, come join us on Patreon. Give it a month, see what you think of it. It's just $1 to join the Writers Club, which is our little Discord group where we talk every day. I definitely make sure to show up there every day, and it's really fun, and you get help from so many other amazing writers just like yourself. So that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you again very soon. Bye!